Alexandra Kitty. Welcome to a new season of Clue IQ Chronicles, Crime, Code, and Clues. This season's going to be a little different. This will be a work in progress. So what we're going to have in this episode will take us to the end. It's not themed the way my other two podcasts are themed, but we are going to have more and more. So I'm not having, if you've noticed about my other podcast, up or down in this one, I just have a static splash page. That's going to start to change. I was getting my feet wet. I haven't been doing any streaming or podcasting solo for maybe 2-3 years, maybe since 2022. I have done a lot of podcast interviews, but that's different. Me doing solo is not something I've done. And if you know anything about me, I write books, I blog, I do stuff, but I'm not a numbers chaser. I'm not somebody who is gregarious that way. I tend to be low key, low profile, and I just like to do minimum. And I don't mean minimum effort. I put a lot of work and research in what I do, but I tend to do, very quiet sets and stuff. It's not because of a lack of creativity. It's just focus. And I like to get this out faster. So this time I'm going to finesse a little different. So today is going to just be the way it was before. Next week, it's going to be a little different, and I'm tweaking it more and more. So today, I'm just doing it old school. So today, we're going to talk about AI, energy, and the new panic, because people who are these AI doomers, they're very annoying. They're also very narcissistic, and AI is their great humbling. And if we're talking in terms of alchemy, they're at stage nigredo. So if you know anything about alchemy, there's the 4 stages: nigredo, albedo, citrinitas, and rubedo. And that simply means that they are in a stage right now where their narcissism, their egocentrism, their delusional, that they're special and nobody else, they have this gift, all the negative qualities, they're getting hit. So it's not, some of them have been indoctrinated, and some of them just, they have their own sort of narcissistic tendencies to think that they're better than other people. They're more special. Well, I have this artistic gift because I'm just naturally gifted. No, you practiced. Your parents might have sunk a lot of money in tutors and art school that other people didn't have. You didn't have to work as hard as other people in a lot of different ways, and you were lucky. And I can speak personally because when I was a kid, my mother paid for art lessons. She took me to different places. I went to, the Dundas Valley School of Art where I, took classes there as a kid, taught there years later. So it's not, I took music lessons galore, from guitar to violin. So I wasn't somebody who didn't get it. I got a ton of it, more than probably most other people. And I liked doing things on my own. And I never when I was younger, I liked doing abstract art. I liked doing stuff that I didn't see anywhere else. One thing I didn't really like is when I had to copy somebody else's work and practice. This to me was punishment, because that's been already done. That's already been, you've already did that. That's been done. What else can we do? That has always been me. If you've read my books, if my writing's been the same way, my work has always been the same way. What hasn't been done? I don't want to copy other people. First of all, that's their work, not mine. And it's not putting people down if you don't want to copy them. They say imitation's the sincerest form of flattery. I don't think so. That's not flattering. That's being a parasite. And those people should do wonderful creative stuff. They should be celebrated. They shouldn't be imitated. And this is the one thing, this is why I started Clue IQ, because there was a niche that wasn't being served. We have this big gap. We shouldn't have this. And with my books, I'm always surprised when it has either never been done before, or you can count on one hand the number of times it's been done. And in a sea of books around the world over the centuries, to have maybe 2 or 3 books at the most on a certain topic that should have at least a few hundred, if not a couple of thousand books, it's disgraceful. So I don't have, there's a lot of artists I absolutely love. Salvador Dali, Han Hugerbrug, there's Renoir. I love those artists. But it doesn't mean that if I don't emulate them, that I don't have the utmost respect for them. Of course I do. One has nothing to do with the other, but I'm not going to I can be inspired. I can get to thinking of different things and different paths. But following and copying somebody blindly has never been my thing. So when you see these people, and it's a vocal minority, don't think that most people are against AI. No, it's this narcissistic minority because they have grown up thinking that there's something special. You are special to your pet. You are special to your mom and dad. You're special to your children or your sweetheart. But outside that confines, you are just another person. We're all somebody else to somebody else. That's not low self-esteem. I can love somebody with all my heart. They get in the path of a serial killer. There's going to be nothing special about them to this horrible person. You lose a job, you're replaceable. Spouses are replaceable. This doesn't mean that you have despair. Well, I'm not special. Well, good. You're a person that liberates you. Move on. Why is your ego so fragile that you have to be the only one? You don't have to be the only one because you're not. And a lot of times people confuse special with special needs. They don't understand. You needing extra support means that we have to give you more just to keep up. It's not being special when you demand special treatment. You're not special. You are a person just like any other person. That means you have to put effort and work into what you do. You have to take care. You have to think about other people as well as yourself. You're in the equation. You don't have to put yourself dead last, but you shouldn't put yourself absolute first all the time. If you cannot stand to be in a room for 5 minutes where somebody else gets attention and you don't, you have a problem. You need to question yourself. Why is it that this is so important that you have to, you need supply. You need to suck out all the air. And there's consequences. Penitentiaries are full of people who are narcissistic, who are Machiavellian, who have psychopathy. This is not a healthy mindset. So you have this group of people who are getting rankled because not all of them are organically narcissistic, but social media cultivated this. It's like a farm filled with livestock, almost like Kobe beef. These are people who gotten massaged and everything, not realizing why. So if you know anything about Kobe beef and look it up, ask Perplexity, what is special about this? When you're groomed and looked after, sometimes it's not a good thing, but most times it's not because people are dependent on you for their survival, or at least living a luxurious lifestyle off your work. So let's talk about get away from that kind of temper tantrum we're hearing from people who cannot stand the fact that they're not special. They never were. They never were special. They held the illusion that they were. As soon as you put yourself on top of a fake pecking order, the problem is you, not the people you see as beneath you. So to move away from this to our topic, people who are AI doomers will always find yet another thing to lie about. They have made AI into this total enemy. It's very propagandistic. If you know anything about propaganda, and I've written about propaganda, the book Mind Under Siege, Mechanisms of War Propaganda, spill this out. So if you actually look at anti-AI messaging, it is classic propaganda, us versus them, where we deify ourselves, deify our lousy art, mediocre art, and demonize AI. It is no different. It's actually safe bigotry, safe prejudice. You don't have this person. You have these bigoted tendencies, but you can't say it because you know you're going to get in trouble. So you find some safe victim, and it's AI. So let's take something that we hear, this talking points memo from these latent people, bigoted people, who don't actually realize. That's why I like AI. It's a humbler. And let's take one of their arguments. So you've seen the headlines. AI will eat the grid. Data centers are the new coal. Your chatbot is melting the planet. We've heard this time and again. It's the same script every time a new technology shows up. So this is not just AI. First, we're told it will take our jobs. Then we're told it will take our power. Now, when I was younger, I used to read the Wall Street Journal religiously. I had other newspapers, other mother magazines. And for the record, I read everything from Spy Magazine to Mother Jones to Wall Street Journal. It wasn't political. I just wanted to gain information from different sources, left, right, center, radical center, and learn. And I distinctly remember there was an article in the Wall Street Journal talking about about energy taking, from cable to internet. So there was always this discussion, well, this is going to eat up all our power. Every time a new technology comes, this is the same old story, same old playbook, because it's based in propaganda. It's not based on empirical standard. So with AI, the energy panic has become a new favorite way to say this can't work. So we have to get rid of it. This is going to cause doom and gloom. So we have to get rid of it. So let's talk about what's actually true, what's conveniently exaggerated, and what it means for the future of people like us who are building on top of these systems. So let's talk about the doom tape. So let's start with the scary numbers. The International Energy Agency estimates that global electricity consumption from data centers is set to more than double by 2030, reaching roughly 945 terawatt hours a year, as much power as Japan uses today. So AI is a major driver of that growth. Other reports forecast that data centers could account for a large share of new power demand growth in advanced economies, and that AI-optimized campuses can pull as much power as a small city. So those are big numbers, and they're supposed to be. What the doom narrative does is take big and quietly swap it for impossible, as if rising demand is some shocking anomaly, instead of the basic story of every major technology wave since the Industrial Revolution. So what do the serious studies actually say? So if you move past the headlines and look at actual grid and energy analysis, the story gets much less doom and gloom and much more technical. So we also have to remember that a lot of people who are anti-AI cannot read an academic study. They have no understanding of STEM. They have no understanding of, they don't bother, not only do they not bother to read scientific studies or literature, they can't know if a study is good or bad. You can't just bandy about a study and say, oh, this study says. You have to vet the study, because more studies are not bad than good. So you have a group of people who don't even know that much. They avoided science education. They avoided math education. They stuck to the arts, and then they talk as if they know, and they don't. I do, because I studied as much, probably went more on the side of science than I did on the arts when I went to school. But when I took extra courses outside of the academic institutions for my art education. So serious studies on AI data centers point out three things. First, yes, electricity demand from AI-heavy data centers is rising fast, and that will require substantial new generation, transmission, and distribution investment to keep the power reliable. Second, the stress points are specific: interconnection queues, local bottlenecks, and regions with already fragile infrastructures. So regions that did not keep up with upgrading their systems. This is very important. So this is not AI being bad. This is your local government or state or provincial government or your national government not investing in the power grid. So less on why is AI doing this is why is your government taking all your taxes and not upgrading. And third, none of this is physics saying no. It's planning and policy saying you have work to do. So in other words, AI doesn't magically break the grid. It forces utilities, regulators, and operators to stop pretending the grid can stay frozen in time and decay while everything plugged into it changes. So this is lack of government foresight, lack of industry planning. It just exposes incompetence. And this is important to know. How does a society progress if it doesn't? And it's not just the grid. It's the roads. You look at the roads. We're in almost 2026, and we don't have roads that are made safe. You don't have enough roundabout speed bumps, for instance. You don't have urban planning. It's the same old thing we've done for decades. We haven't really modernized transportation. We have roads that crumble. Why in 2026 do we have roads that fall apart, that need constant patching up? The technology is there. We just have systems that do not invest. The rest of the world says, well, I want progress. And you're being held back by governments who have memorized the script and hold on to it and will not go into the future. They're stuck in the past. So let's talk the part the doom script skips, because this goes a lot deeper. So here's the twist the panic never mentions. The same AI systems being blamed for rising power demand are already being used to make energy systems less wasteful, more flexible, and more predictable. So actually, these systems that are being slacked are rewriting the script. They are actually making space for themselves. So AI-driven smart grid tools are balancing supply and demand in real time, forecasting loads, rerouting energy, so fewer electrons are simply lost or dumped. Building level systems use AI to cut heating, cooling, and lighting waste by learning how spaces are actually used instead of blasting everything at full power just in case. Now think about that. On top of that, utilities and developers are already folding AI into how they site wind farms, solar installations, and storage, optimizing where they put new capacity and when to dispatch it. So you end up with a more honest picture. Yes, AI increases electricity demand. Yes, that demands serious upgrades and investment, which is not a bad thing. We don't let systems crumble. If you invest in a town or a city, then you are forced to find ways to justify the cost. So then cities do not erode. People are not left behind. When you have a government that doesn't invest in the grid, they allow tent cities. That's not acceptable. So yes, that demands serious upgrades and investment, but then you're investing in the people which you have confidence deserve it. And yes, AI is also one of the tools being used to make those upgrades smarter and less wasteful. That's not a doomsday loop. That's a feedback loop you can actually engineer. So we're moving away from the grid will break to who builds it, who reinvents it. Once you drop the moral panic, let me correct myself. Once you drop the pseudo moral panic, the question stops being, will AI melt the grid, and becomes, who gets to decide what the new grid looks like? Because make no mistake, with projections showing data center demands doubling or more by 2030, AI is a primary driver. Enormous money and political power are now attached to how and where that new capacity gets built. So if you care about AI's future as a builder, as a user, or as somebody who doesn't want their city held hostage by a handful of server farms, that's the real battlefield. It's not whether AI is allowed to exist because of its power draw. It's whether the economic value it clearly creates is used to justify lazy infrastructure or to push for smarter, cleaner, more resilient systems. The energy panic tries to make AI sound like it's economically doomed. It can't work, the power bill will kill it. But the actual data says something extremely different, completely different. Demand is rising, investment is following, and AI itself is being pointed at So you might have read my blog entry from a few weeks ago. You might have heard the argument that AI's unit economics have already killed that it will never be profitable script. And I'll leave the link in the description. The energy panic is just the same script wearing a different costume. AI is not some rogue parasite on the grid. It is becoming one of the core drivers of why the grid will change, where investment flows, and how efficiently we actually use the energy we generate. So the next time someone insists AI will melt the grid, you can tell them this. The grid is going to change no matter what. The real question is whether we let panic write the story or whether we use the tools we're building to design something better on purpose. So that's all I have to say for myself this week. Next week, something else. Till then, it's Alexandra Kitty. Ta-ta for now.